If you're watching this, it's likely that you or someone close to you has experienced a traumatic brain injury and you're looking for clarity and support. In this chapter, we'll talk about the wide ranges of physical, cognitive, and emotional symptoms that follow a brain injury and why these changes can be so hard for others to see. I'm here to help you understand and navigate what can feel overwhelming. We've discussed how TBIs happen and what they are. Now comes the human side. What does a traumatic brain injury do to a person? What symptoms might they experience right after the injury and in the long run? And why do we call it silent catastrophe? This chapter is crucial for both families and attorneys because understanding the wide-ranging effects of TBI, physical, cognitive, emotional, is key to caring for survivors and advocating for them. First of all, let's establish a basic truth. A brain injury can change just about everything about a person's life. The brain is the control center for how we think, feel, move, and behave. So when it's injured, the effects can be profound and multifaceted. Traumatic brain injuries can profoundly impact a person's behavior, emotions, and personality. And these changes make daily life challenging not only for the injured person, but also for their loved ones. That's a powerful statement, and it's born out of countless cases. Let's break down the types of symptoms and sequelae, or a fancy word for after effects, that TBIs can cause. Immediately or soon after a TBI, you might see symptoms like physical symptoms, headache, dizziness, nausea or vomiting, fatigue, balance problems. These are very common after a concussion or a TBI. In more severe cases, there could be clear signs like a period of unconsciousness. If you're knocked out, seizures, one pupil is dilated, or even clear fluid leaking from the nose or ears, which suggests a skull fracture with spinal fluid leak. But even in mild cases, a person might feel off. Maybe they're unsteady on their feet or just feel tired and dazed. Cognitive symptoms are common. This includes confusion, memory loss, especially about the event or shortly before or after it, trouble concentrating and feeling mentally slow or foggy. For example, a classic concussion sign is anterograde amnesia, not remembering the accident or the minutes around it. A person might ask the same questions repeatedly. What happened? Where am I? Because they can't retain new information for a bit. They might also have difficulty finding words or following conversations. Emotional and behavioral symptoms also occur. Many TBI victims experience mood changes, irritability, or even depression and anxiety fairly soon after the injury. They might be unusually emotional, quick to anger or tearfulness, or conversely seem apathetic or flat. Some become restless or agitated. They are due to the injury effect on the brain regions that regulate emotion. It's not just being upset about the accident, though that can happen too. It's an organic change in the brain's balance. Now, those are the early symptoms. What about the long-term symptoms? This is where the term silent catastrophe often comes in. Many of the enduring effects of TBIs are invisible to an outsider, but catastrophic to the person and the family. Let's consider some categories of long-term issues. The physical sequelae. Some TBI survivors have lasting physical problems. This could be as straightforward as chronic headaches or as major as partial paralysis. Many have issues with coordination and balance. Maybe they stumble more or can't do fine hand movements as well. Others might have chronic dizziness or visual disturbances like trouble focusing their eyes. Fatigue is a big one too. Neurological fatigue can make a person tire out much faster than before, needing naps or rest after mental or physical exertion. In severe cases, there can be persistent muscle weakness or spasticity in parts of the brain that control movement where damaged. Another physical issue is seizures that can develop after a TBI, a condition called post-traumatic epilepsy. Cognitive results. These are often most troubling day-to-day issues. Memory problems are extremely common. Perhaps the person can't remember new information well or has spotty recall of things they used to know. Attention and concentration can be impaired, meaning they can't focus on tasks or get easily distracted. Processing speed might be slower. It just takes more time for them to think through problems or respond, which can be frustratingly apparent when they try to have a conversation or do a task they used to do quickly. Executive functions also get affected. Things like planning, organizing, decision making can suffer. So the person might seem disorganized or unable to make decisions like before. Even speech and language can be affected. Some people can't find the right words easily, like the word is on top of their tongue, or they might have a trouble following complex instructions. Imagine someone who has once sharp and quick-witted now struggling to follow a TV plot or remember to pay a bill. It can be deeply frustrating for them and concerning for the family. Emotional and behavioral effects. TBIs often cause personality changes or emotional instability. A previous calm person might now have a short fuse, prone to anger over little things. Mood swings are very common. Laughing one minute, crying the next, or swinging from cheerful to irritable without obvious reason. Depression and anxiety frequently developed after a TBI. Part of that is a direct result of brain changes. Part is the individual becoming aware of their deficits and feeling grief or worry over them. There's also something called impulsivity. The injured person might act or speak without the same filter they used to have, which can lead to inappropriate remarks or rash decisions. In some cases, particularly frontal lobe injuries, people lose a degree of inhibition or self-control. Another common issue is a lack of self-awareness of the deficits. Some severe TBI survivors generally don't understand that they have limitations, which can be dangerous. For example, insisting they can drive when they shouldn't. This is called anosognosia, and it's itself a result of the injury. Additionally, apathy or lack of motivation can occur, and the person may seem indifferent or lazy when in fact it's a neurological effect. Now, when we talk about the silent catastrophe, we're highlighting that a lot of these symptoms are not obvious to others. If you see a TBI survivor in a grocery store, they might look totally normal. No limp, no slurred speech, yet they might be desperately struggling internally to remember why they're in aisle 3 or feeling on the verge of tears for no apparent reason. From the outside, many TBI survivors look fine, yet inside they're dealing with life-altering disaster. This invisibility can lead to misunderstandings from friends, coworkers, even family may initially not grasp the seriousness of what's happened. They might say, well, you seem okay to me, you're walking and talking, why can't you just go back to normal? The lack of visible evidence can be very frustrating and isolating for the injured person. In fact, because the injury isn't visible like a broken bone or a cut, it can be misunderstood or even dismissed by people around the survivor. Have you ever heard the term invisible injury? TBI is the poster child for it. Loved ones may not realize why the person is acting differently. Employers might not believe that someone who looks fine could be disabled. Insurance companies sometimes question the legitimacy of the symptoms because they can't see them on a scan. This is the crux of why TBI is often called a silent epidemic. It's widespread and devastating, but too often suffers from lack of awareness. Let's consider a concrete example of the after effects. Memory issues. Suppose a person, 35-year-old woman, suffers a moderate TBI in a car accident. Physically, she recovers enough to walk and generally get around. So to others, she apparently looks okay. But now she has significant short-term memory problems. She might start cooking and forget about the stove, or meet someone new and forget their name. She has trouble concentrating, so reading a book or doing her job, which requires multitasking, becomes extremely difficult. This was a highly capable person before, and now her life is in disarray. But if you saw her at a coffee shop, you'd have no clue anything was wrong. This is a silent catastrophe for her and her family. Her independence, her career, her confidence are all undermined by something no one else can see. Another example, personality change. Perhaps a father of two suffers a concussion. a mild TBI, in a fall. He was known to be patient and kind, but post-injury, he becomes irritable and snaps at his kids for little things. He's anxious in the way he never was before. His wife feels like he's become a different person. Again, to the outside world, he looks the same, no casts or wheelchairs, but internally and behaviorally, things have changed. The family often has to adjust to the new normal, which can be heartbreaking. It's sometimes described as losing the person you knew, even though they survived the injury. This emotional toll is huge, and we'll talk about more of the family's experience in Chapter 7. Let's talk about some of the specific syndromes or terms you might hear. One is post-concussion syndrome, PCS, which refers to a set of symptoms that persist for weeks or months after their concussion or a mild TBI. People with PCS might have ongoing headaches, dizziness, sleep problems, trouble concentrating, and mood changes long after the initial injury. It can be very frustrating because everyone expects a concussion to heal in a couple of weeks, but PCS can last for a year or more in some cases. Another term, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. This is more relevant to repeated TBIs like pro athletes who had a concussion multiple times. It's a degenerative brain condition that emerges years later with symptoms like severe mood swings, aggression, dementia-like cognitive decline. It's been in the news with the NFL players lately. While it's not usually directly part of a single personal injury case, since it results from repetitive injuries, often over a career, it underscores the long-term risk of brain trauma. Importantly, mental health struggles often go hand in hand with TBIs. Depression, anxiety, and even increased risk of suicide have been noted in TBI survivors. This is a somber aspect, but one families and attorneys must be mindful of. A person with a TBI might need psychological support or medication just as much as they need physical therapy. Studies and experiences show that a significant number of TBI survivors battle depression due to the changes in the brain's chemistry and the upheaval in their lives. And if the issues aren't addressed, they can worsen outcomes. So the aftermath of a TBI isn't just about the rehabilitation of cognitive and motor skills, but also about the counseling and emotional support. Now, how do we prove and document all these effects? We'll cover that in the next chapters, especially the litigation part. But from a clinical perspective, doctors use various tools. There are neuropsychological tests. These are like extensive cognitive exams where a neuropsychologist has the person do memory tasks, puzzles, attention tests, etc., to pinpoint what deficits exist. Often people with mild TBIs who seem fine will show clear problems on these tests. Example, like their score is way lower than expected for someone of their age and education. Neuropsych testing is considered a gold standard for uncovering cognitive issues that aren't obvious on a scan. There are also questionnaires and inventories for mood and quality of life, and of course, the observations of family and friends carry weight. They can tell how a person is different now, what they struggle with, and what their baseline is. Let's not forget one more thing. Symptoms can be delayed or evolve over time. Sometimes a person might seem okay in the first hours or days after an injury, and then certain symptoms become more apparent later. For example, maybe they were in shock or not pushing their cognitive limits initially, but when they get back to work or a month later, they realize, whoa, I can't handle this like before. This happens, and it's another reason TBIs can be silent early on and feel catastrophic later as life expectations resume and conflicts emerge. I also want to highlight how families often notice things the patient themselves doesn't. A brain injury can affect one's self-awareness, so it might be a spouse or a parent who first says, "You're different now," or "You keep forgetting things," or "You get so angry these days." Those close to the survivor become key in identifying the outcomes. As we'll discuss in litigation, their testimony can be pivotal in painting a full picture for the injury's impact. In summary, the symptoms and aftermath of a TBI span of physical issues like headaches, dizziness, coordination problems, cognitive struggles, memory loss, slow thinking, trouble focusing, and emotional behavioral changes like irritability, depression, personality shifts. It's a multi system, life altering event, and it's often silent and catastrophic because these profound changes are not readily visible to others and can be easily misunderstood or underestimated. For the individual and their family, though, the catastrophe is very real and very loud in its consequences. As we move into the legal discussions, keep these human effects in mind. They are the reasons we fight so hard in these cases, because the injury is real and devastating, even if it doesn't show up with dramatic visuals. In the next chapter, we'll pivot to the law. Given the injuries are invisible, how do attorneys go about proving the invisible in court? What are the foundations of litigating a TBI case? We'll cover the strategies, evidence, and challenges of bringing a traumatic brain injury case to life in the courtroom so that the juries and judges truly understand what cannot be seen with the naked eye. Let's dive into the litigation foundations of proving the invisible injury. As we move on to our next video, if you do have questions from this previous video, I'm happy to answer anything that I've covered and walk through your situation personally. If you do want to talk, you can reach us at 602-283-4122 at Kelly Law Team.